I am the Craft Dad.
Alright, I'm back, and actually this is the second voice recording, because the first time I sounded like a squirrel. Here's a sample. So, what I had actually said in squirrelese, this is the going to be the hip piece, and I'll talk about the template later. What I was trying to figure out is how am I going to affix the hip piece to my daughter. And so I wanted a belt of some sort. So I grabbed an extra foam piece and created an edge along the teeth. I dremeled it down so that the teeth could be the glue point for the hip piece, which actually worked out really nice because surprisingly, that one piece of foam that goes on the outer edge of the foam mat goes around my daughter's waist perfectly. And so I fixed the hip pieces on there. I plan to affix them on there so that they sit on her hips, but they're free flowing. They're easier. It's something that's nice and thick and doesn't just wobble around really. And you could probably do some cool things with that too. So here's the template. With the template, I cut out with the Exacto knife the different sections. Now this is time consuming, and don't worry. As you can see, there's some tape spots on there. If you rip the paper, just tape it. That's going to be the theme that you hear. If you rip it, just tape it. This is just the template. If you're working on, when we get to the foam, if you rip it, just tape it. It's all going to get covered in Worbla. And yes, the hands you saw were not mine. That was Mrs. Craft Dad. Mr. Craft Dad does not have that feminine of looking hands. Okay, so getting back to the project here. Once you've got it cut out, tape it down to the foam first. Don't do like me and be like, okay, I don't want to tape it, I'm gonna rip it, because I kept thinking I'm gonna rip it, so I gotta hold it in place and cut around it while still holding it in place. Make things easy on yourself. Tape it down. If it rips, you can tape it to fix it. It's not a big deal. Just tape it down to make life easier for yourself. Okay? Once you've got it taped down, I cut out the edges around it. You could do that first, you could do that last. That way it gives you something more to hold on, and it adds stability to the outer edges. It's all up to you and your preference. This is just a way to do it, not the way to do it. Okay, so here we are. I'm cutting through, and as I said, it's time consuming. One of the things I found out is when I get to the small corners like this, you got to be careful and really try to make sure you've got the full corner, because if not, you'll end up ripping the foam. And as you can see in the bottom right corner edge there's tape. That's what I ended up doing. I tried pulling the foam thinking, oh, well, I've cut it enough, it'll just rip right off. And yeah, it ripped right off and ripped right through the corner. So I taped it. It'll be fine. No one will ever know, except you guys who watch my video, that that corner was ripped. So here's the Worbla. I just did a quick outline, made it bigger, a little bigger than my template itself. After you cut out the Worbla, what you're going to want to do is, of course, lay it down on your template, or not template, on your piece. So here you can see, I love the way the red and black looks. I have to tell you, I'm a sucker for red and black. But here it is, it's laid out, and before I put the Worbla on, I need to adhere the cutout template to the base template, or base piece. And so instead of gluing the entire edge with hot glue, which a lot of you will probably think is best to do, I did spot gluing. I did the corners, I did like maybe in the middle, as you can see here, like right there in the middle, places to kind of help hold the foam piece down, but not to completely adhere it to the piece, because I do want it to be able to stretch and move a little bit, because we're going to be bending this piece into a conical shape. Okay? But the Worbla, and this is the great thing about Worbla, the Worbla will hold that piece in place. Now, Worbla, you have to heat it up to a certain temperature before it starts to break apart. And for those of you who travel a lot to different cosplay areas and you're in a hot area, don't worry. If you use Worbla, your piece, your prop, your cosplay equipment will stay together. It's not gonna fall apart like when you get to a place and you're like, oh my god, where's my repair kit? I need my repair kit. Who forgot the hot glue? You don't have to worry about that. You get there and it stays together. It's all together. Even if the hot glue melts, the Worbla will hold it in place, and it will dry, and it will just be like nothing happened, So once you get the Worbla piece on, heat up in sections. Remember I talked about this in one of my other videos. If you watched all my other videos, Worbla has a tendency to create bubbles from reheating. When you heat it the first time, it doesn't create the bubbles. The bubbles are generated from the reheating of Worbla. Now the bubbles are easy to fix. You just have to puncture them and let the hot air out, because that's really what it is. It's hot air that's created from the burning of the foam or the Worbla, the glue or whatever. It's something's creating air. So here, of course, I didn't do that first because this is the first time I'm really kind of doing this. Like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm just trying things and sharing them with you so you can learn from me so that you make things easy for yourself. And it's all about how you like to do things. So what I should have done again is heat it up in sections, do the tempering, and then just work my way down, which is what I ended up doing for the other piece. But as you can see for this one, I heated it up and it's all on there. Make sure the piece of Worbla you cut out is big enough. If it's not, you can heat it up and you can stretch it a little. Don't overstretch it or you'll end up ripping the Worbla. So again, this is the hard part. This is where the tools come in great, because as you heat it up, you may not want to use your fingers to push it down. Or you can get like those, I guess they have like the little pot holder, silicone things that you can use when you're cooking. Yeah, maybe I should try to get those so I can do some more molding or touching of the Worbla when it's really hot. That's an idea. Okay, so but here, I pushed it all down, and like I said, I did this in sections for the second piece, which worked a lot better. This one I heated it up, stuck it all down in the middle. Now, you can stop here if you want, but I wanted the crisper edge on the inside from the mold, not mold, but from the elevated piece of the foam. And so this is where I used the clay modeling tools, the different pieces, and I found the ones that I liked that let me get into the corners and let me really kind of shove that Worbla down into the crack and create a nice, cleaner looking edge. So as you can see here, and I can't remember if I got any close-up pictures. Again, this was all done months ago. I'm just now getting around to getting the video out. I apologize, but life is life. Okay, but as you can see here, it's looking sharper, and it looks like it's all one piece, which is what I was going for. It looks awesome. And then as you're working, if it cools off, you just heat up the section again that you're working on. So as you can see there in the middle, it looks like it's pressed all the way in, but it's not, because you can see in the bottom left where it's pushed in and it's nice and crisp, and right there it's not. It looks like it's kind of webbed over something. So I heated it up, and then I went in with the tool and tucked the corners in, and it gave me a really nice looking piece. And it's just an idea. Here's a low angle shot where you can kind of see the elevated piece. It's just enough to give it that dimensional look, but not so much that it's overpowering or that it looks, quirky. So that's how I did that piece. And then here it is. What I did is I folded it and I stuck it in the tray in the bottom to help keep that edge, and the Worbla dried. Now, as you can see on there, I do have some of the bubbling going on in the places where I reheated. That's why it's important, to try to get it done in the first place. But you can poke it if you want to get it, try and get a really flat surface. I didn't really care. I was more time constrained than I was going for a perfectly looking piece. But see, these are some nice close-ups, and the foam, I could bend it easily and it stuck. And so for the foam pieces in the back to help hold it, adhere it, I did the hot glue, and then on top of the hot glue, I did Worbla. The Worbla will really help make sure that this piece doesn't fall off while my daughter's wearing the costume. Okay, so what you see here are pieces that I did for the shoulder. I had a friend make some, it's supposed to be like scales, but so she did pieces like this, and it worked out great. It depends on how you want to do your scaling. And so I had her make a whole bunch of them. She was really happy with me. No, she wasn't. But it helps because I had all these pieces. I was like, hey, just cut me pieces or make me pieces that are about the same size so I can cut them and then cover them in Worbla and then layer them. So it doesn't really matter what shape you cut them. It's going to be on based on the technique you use to actually layer them. And here's my friend cutting them out. I put her to use as well, cutting them out. Always good to have friends to help you work with it. I've got to find some new friends here because we moved and they're further away and I can't use those friends anymore to help me make it. So as you see here, I needed something to kind of prop it up because I wanted it to be higher up off her shoulder and not sitting right on her shoulder. So I placed the pauldron on this, and the Worbla along with some hot glue helps to make sure it adheres really well so that it doesn't fall off while she's wearing it. Unfortunately, I didn't get more pictures of me doing that part as I made this, so this is what it looks like, and I'll have it on both sides to kind of balance it out so she doesn't feel heavy. Now, I was thinking of doing the helmet, and I started working on it, and then I realized I just ain't got time to make the helmet, at least to the detail I want. So I skipped the helmet, decided it'd be better. So we started working on the her leg shin guards. I forget what that's called in the armor world, but I tried to do it differently this time. So I did the template, and I cut out 2 pieces for each leg, and I make sure to mark left, right. You know, you don't want to mix them up while you're working. So I did the method that I used for hip pieces. I did the black marker, and then I went back and I cut out the areas that I didn't need, that I wanted empty. And this is essentially what I did with the other one, except I skipped the step of creating the paper template. Did it the same way. Now here you can see I'm slowly working my way down, getting everything nice and tucked in. Now for her hands, for her hand guards, I just did 3 pieces of Worbla, or not Worbla, 3 pieces of foam layered, and then I did Worbla over the whole thing, and then tucked it in, and then did Worbla outlining. And as you can see here, I did sections of it, and then heated up the Worbla at the end and blended that in so that it looked like it flowed into the Worbla below it. You can really get that effect with the Worbla, which is nice, and you can do a little sanding if you wanted. I didn't, and this is what they look like. Remember, you can do a lot of detailing work with Worbla. It just depends on how much detailing you want to do, how much work you want to put into it. It's not that difficult. So here you can see the pieces flat, and next we'll be bending them. So what I did is I heated them up, and I stuck them in a container with a, so you can see some paintbrushes, a water bottle, to kind of keep the shape that I needed. It worked great doing it this way. For her shoulder, for her arms, as you can see here, I melted it or heated it up, molded it, and then had her do test fits. I had her move her arm around. Now I was trying to do it with foam straps. Didn't like the way it looked, didn't like how much they didn't stretch when she tried to get her arm in and out from the foam straps. So I ended up cutting those off and using elastic, and I'll tell you, it worked great. You'll see some pictures later on of that. So next, I started painting, and this time I went with a white primer, and I really liked it because the white primer helped the paint stand out more as opposed to the gray primer I used on the swords. Now, as you see here, I didn't do anything to smooth the surface of the Worbla, so it's still got a rough surface to it. But you know what? It doesn't matter. So I went through with an airbrush this time and did the airbrushing, and as you can see here in the light of the garage, which wasn't very good, the pictures looked nice. I mean, it looked nice, but when you get into brighter light, you can see more of the blotchiness of the airbrushing. But I went in there with the, I did the purple first, and then I went back with the black. And, you know, did I make a mess in some places? Yeah, sure. And it came out darker than I wanted to. Was having problems with the airbrush. But here is the painted costume, and having the tape and plastic still on the mannequin was great because I didn't have to worry about the paint I got on it. Here you can see the elastic that I did. I bent the elastic over Worbla, and then I did another strip of Worbla and stuck it in there. So as you can see here, it's kind of like sandwiching in the elastic. That held it perfect. I mean, it did not come loose. And when we were stretching the leg pieces over her shoes, I really thought I was going to rip it apart, and as we were trying to get it on, and it did. I mean, we put a lot of strain on it trying to get it in. You can see where I cut the foam pieces off, and I couldn't really get them off because of the hot glue, and I didn't want to take the time to remove them, so I just stuck them. So you can see here, did the first strip holding it in, and then I folded the elastic piece up, and then I did the second strip to hold it in place. Worked great. You can pre-do this so that if you're working with a elastic piece that it's already kind of stretched or taut, that works great. So you can see I did it for the legs too, and then I just spray painted it black. The not spray painted, but the airbrushed, and it worked great. So here's the thread that I bought. It was nice purplish. It was thick but thin. And here we have what she looks like wearing the full costume. She kept the laces from the boots out for this photo, but when she actually wore the costume, we tucked them in. Now, like I said, in brighter light, you can actually see more of the blotchiness of the airbrush. Like I said, which wasn't flowing the way I wanted to, and I didn't have time to really fix it and figure it out. But she loved it, so I loved it. It works great. And as you can see, how well the hip guards held the hip pieces in place, and it just fitted around her hips. Everything looked nice. She had full movement with her arms, which was great. She didn't feel like the costume was impeding her in any way, and she felt like she could move. And this, I ended up going with 2 pieces of string because using one made it difficult. So what you have here next is some live action footage of me airbrushing. And as I said, you know, the airbrush I had, it just wasn't working right for me. So I spent a lot of time just getting the paint to run correctly, trying to figure out the air pressures and stuff. I've never taken a class. Oh well. So I learn as I go along. Not that hard. As you can see here, you know, I'm actually getting it to paint in and stuff. And maybe I could have just more easily, you know, painted everything since I was going to go back with the black and not as worry as much, but that's just me. There is an art to airbrushing, and man, I have a lot more respect for those that do this and make phenomenal looking images and pictures and things. It does get painful. Your wrist and your hand do get painful. So if you've got wrist problems and stuff, you may not want to go into airbrushing. You can see here I'm wearing a plastic glove on my hand, just help keep the paint off. If sometimes I forget. Oh well. Never be afraid to learn something new. You never know what you're gonna be able to pick up.
Okay, so yeah, just no, not walking, just movement. Bend your legs up.
Moving in place.
Okay, yeah, show that you can squat. You can move your arms. Do a twirl. Yep, alrighty.
So this is the costume I made for my daughter. I hope you like it. I enjoyed it. I hope it gave you some ideas of some techniques or things you can do if you make a costume for yourself or for a loved one. Either way, have fun as you're making things. Thank you for watching my video. I, again, hope you enjoyed it. This video was made with me and friends, and I will miss them as we're not living near each other anymore. So if you like this video, please remember to like, share, and of course, subscribe.